Hey folks, Pete Kazanji here, founder of Atrium. Really excited to give folks a run through today, doing a little community demo. We're all about community here. So in the next little bit here, we're going to be jamming through some context on Atrium and kind of like helping you run through what it actually looks like live. We should get out of here in about 20 or so minutes here. And just want to remind everybody that, if you want to, it's super easy to set up an Atrium account. Takes about 90 seconds. You can do it yourself. Just go to atriumhq.com, go ahead and sign in with your Salesforce account, and you'll be on your merry way to getting a free Atrium account to start your data-driven sales management journey. So just like some really quick context here for everybody. So Atrium makes data-driven sales management software, and literally what it exists to do is to help managers, AE, SDR, AM, CSM managers use data to improve rep and team performance. Use metrics, use data to help make people's performance better. And the reason why we do that is because the big kind of insight that we realized is that really managers are the ones that make the that make the trains run on time, and high performing managers really are the difference between success and failure. And this isn't just something that is our arbitrary opinion. This is something that Gartner and a variety of other people agree with as well, and it drives all sorts of positive benefits of having higher performing managers. And so the thing is, though, is that in order to be a fantastic sales manager, SDR manager, AE manager, AM, CSM manager, there's a lot of stuff you have to do. There's a lot of things. It's obviously, yes, it's deal inspection and deal strategy, which is usually the thing that people have a tendency to focus on the most. But that's not the only thing, even though sometimes it's the only thing people focus on. You actually have to do a variety of other things as well, many of which are supported from with respect to metrics. You got to have data-driven one-on-ones. You need to be identifying issues for, where a rep is having an issue. You have to identify what that root cause is. You got to fix it. You got to be tracking progress towards goals, not just lagging indicators, but also leading and intermediary indicators. And if you're hiring reps, whether it's SDRs or AEs or what have you, you really have to be monitoring the ramp of those reps' success. And so those are just some of the things that you have to be doing in addition to all the other jazz you have to be spending your time on as well, like personality management. So-and-so broke up with so-and-so, so-and-so's out sick, etc. So it turns out that it's actually really, really hard to do. And so in order to make it easier for managers to do all those things, you have to use data, you have to use metrics. And so this is something that is a little known reality in the world. It's becoming more and more of a reality for folks, but this is how great sales managers to improve team performance. And so the way that organizations do this right now is there's a variety of things that they have to do in order to get up what we like to call the hierarchy of data-driven sales management. So first, you got to know what metrics to track and what questions you're going to answer. Then you got to collect the relevant data. You got to get it into some sort of data store, whether it's like your CRM or a cloud data warehouse or what have you. Then you actually have to build the relevant reporting, because if you have that data places but you can't see it, it's not all that super helpful. And so the challenge, though, is that a lot of organizations think that they're going to do this initially and that they're done. And the reality is that your job has just begun here. And so what you actually then have to do is you have to look at that. You have to interpret it. You have to set and monitor goals on those various KPIs. You then have to visually monitor and identify aberrations in those various metrics. And then lastly, even if you're identifying those issues, what you have to do is you have to diagnose and root cause the particular issues for resolution. And so getting up this stack right here is extremely difficult for folks to do. Very few organizations do it. And then moreover, usually the way that it gets done, quote unquote, is by handing sales managers or SDR managers or AMCSM managers these giant walls of charts for them to inscrutable walls of charts for people to try to interpret. And so what our kind of point of view on this is that there's got to be a better way to do this. And so our proposal to the world is that the better way to do this is to have purpose-made software that focuses on helping managers use data to improve team performance. And so what that looks like in practice is every KPI that a team could need, the AE, SDR, AM, CSM team, already ready out of the box, proactive goal tracking that's like just monitoring progress towards goals, early warning alerting on those various metrics, and then root cause analysis, diagnosing potential issues automatically for managers, right? Just doing it for them rather than them having to like try to use their eyeballs to figure out what's going on, actually doing that for them. And so this is essentially what Atrium does. Atrium helps sales managers use data to improve their team performance. We do this with nearly 300 customers right now. It's a who's of amazing modern sales organizations. And so the way that we do this is through doing this all automatically. So Atrium has a holistic library of metrics that works straight out of the box. All that data is automatically ingested out of the out of various places where reps do their job. All the reporting is already pre-baked. There's no configuration that's required. But then even more importantly, Atrium is monitoring all of these things for you, right? So Atrium will track progress towards goals, and whether or not a goal was achieved or not. It's continuously monitoring all of these KPIs, and we'll show you this here in a second, in order to help you understand, like, oh, okay, there's a change that's happening right now. And then moreover, Atrium will be doing root cause analysis to figure out what the why behind a particular issue, either outperformance or underperformance. And of course, the way that we do this is we hook into a variety of systems. Again, it takes a couple minutes to just set up, hook into the CRM and other systems as well. Typically, when an organization sets up their free Atrium instance to start, they just sign in with their CRM, and kind of what comes out of that is this massive KPI library that proactive goal tracking, early warning alerting, and performance diagnosis. So we're going to pop into the demo instance here in a hot second. But the thing I would just note to folks is that it's extremely easy to set up an Atrium account. It does take just a couple of minutes. You just go to atriumhq.com and sign in with your CRM credentials, and you're on your merry way to setting up a free account for yourself. So that's the context for folks. Let's go ahead and cruise on over here to the demo instance. I actually have this massive new 16-inch MacBook Pro that I'm loving, so I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here so people can kind of see better. Cool. So this is an Atrium account right here. We're actually logged in as a sales manager. I'm going to kind of, because that's a prototypical use case, I'm going to take you through what this looks like for this. You may notice that the names are a little weird. That's because our demo instance here, this is actually live data that's just been anonymized using Disney character names. My 4-year-old would be very, very happy. So that's why the name's like a little weird. And so what we're going to do is go through this. So Atrium's kind of homepage is set up a little bit like a newspaper, where you have headlines here at the top, right? So these are kind of key insights around whatever we call strategy insights of who needs help and who's taking care of business right here. We'll kind of get back to this in a second. Progress towards goals or achievement thereof. So goals on a weekly, monthly, or quarterly basis. And then all the way down here at the bottom is the Atrium metrics library. And so what this is these are kind of like the Legos for all of that everything else on Atrium is built on here. And so we're going to go ahead and pop in here a little bit. But importantly, what this is none of this required any configuration. All of these are pre-baked out of the box. And so what we have here is we have a pretty straightforward KPI, medium advanced KPI, the average sales cycle for a for an organization. But let's go ahead and pop over here. We're going to go ahead and go to customer facing meeting volume really quick. And so importantly, what we're looking at here is these are the 5 or 6, 6 reps that report to me as the sales manager. Right. And so very quickly, what we can see is this is customer facing meeting volume for all of these different reps here. This is coming directly from Google Calendar. There was no configuration required. Again, if you could set this up in 90 seconds, you could have all this information at your fingertips. So for instance, if we wanted to look at this over time and say, hey, how has this team's meeting behavior been trending? We can do that. We can see we have a rep ramping up right here, Cloak and Dagger. We can also see that there's another rep right here, Agent Wendy Pleakley, that's kind of declining right here over time. And actually, if I wanted to see like, oh, okay, well, like how long have these people been like this light as compared to other folks, I could actually go ahead and just zoom this out a little bit here, trailing 90 days, and then maybe group that by month. And so importantly, what you can see here is that it's extraordinarily easy for me as a non-technical user to ask incremental questions from any of these KPIs. And so this is just one KPI of the hundreds that's present in Atrium. So this is customer facing meetings on the calendar. Here, if I wanted to go ahead and flip over to the number of opportunities that were owned by these reps, it's extremely easy for me to do there. I can go ahead and flip to that and I can see, oh, okay, wow, these two have had way more opportunities than the other reps for quite some time. Looks like Herb here is kind of declining with respect to his opportunity ownership. But importantly, what you can see here is that these Lego blocks are extremely easy for even a non-technical Salesforce reporting wizard or Looker or Tableau reporting wizard to kind of to modify. And that's really important because as a manager, we want, oftentimes the questions that we need to ask aren't all that terribly complicated. It's like, hey, how has opportunity ownership looked over time? Or is this person engaging in the right level of activities? And so being able to answer that question myself without actually having to involve somebody else ends up being very powerful. The last thing I want to touch on here before we kind of move on to how Atrium interprets all of these Legos for us is ramping. So obviously ramping is an extremely important part of point in time for a in a rep's life cycle. And so one of the things that's really powerful about Atrium is that Atrium can visualize everybody's start date, normalize it down here at time equals 0, and then help visualize how someone's ramp is looking or how people's ramp is looking over time, comparing on an apples to apples basis what that looks like at the relevant point in time. So for instance, we can see this is, even though all these reps started at different times on this team, we can see that this rep right here, who's now in their 8th month, they were ramping in band with everybody else, and now they've kind of fallen out of band. And that's a really important thing for us to know, because as a manager, I would want to, oftentimes it's hard to say, hey, is this new person light because they're new, or are they light even as compared to everybody else at that same point in time? And so very quickly, what we can see here is that Oswald the Lucky Rabbit here is actually light as compared to the rest of his team. And then moreover, this rep right here, Cloak and Dagger, it seems that they're actually pretty far behind pace with respect to the other reps at their same point in ramp. Cool. So those are kind of some of the Legos here. Again, there's nearly 100 various KPIs here for all kinds of different use cases: SDR, AE, AM, CSM. I kind of just gave you the quick overview there. But the bigger thing that Atrium does is it actually monitors all these KPIs for us. Right? And that's actually a really important thing, because who's got time to be using their eyeballs to try to scrutinize those walls of charts? That's not the business that we're in as sales managers or SDR managers. We're here to manage humans and make them better. We're not here to be bean counters. And so the idea here is that Atrium does that bean counting for you and monitors those KPIs for you. I'll kind of show you what this looks like in practice here. So you'll note that Atrium's kind of calling out saying, hey, Pete, here are some folks that potentially could need some help, and here are some folks that potentially could use a high five. And so importantly, the way that Atrium knows that this is the case is by doing statistical analysis on the most important KPIs for those various reps. So as an example here, Herb Muddlefoot here has a variety of KPIs that are in a warning state here. And so what you'll note is that there's a couple of different ways that Atrium knows that something is off. right, statistically. The first type is what's known as a trend alert. This compares an individual as compared to themselves over time. So what you'll note here is Atrium saying, hey, Pete, Herb here, he's got a 65% lower win rate on new biz ops in the trailing 90 days than usual. So he normally has a 23% win rate for new biz ops. And right now, in the last 90 days, that win rate is down here at 8%. I think you might want to be aware of this, Pete, because like that seems like a pretty substantial decline as compared to what has been his average previously. Moreover, so there's a couple of other trend alerts here. You can see there's one with respect to bookings, there's one with respect to pipeline ownership. Cool. The other way that Atrium understands that something might be up that I might want to be paying attention to is what's known as peer alerts. So this right here, it compares apples to apples, so an individual rep as compared to the other people who are like him or her in the organization. So same segment, same role, same tier. And so in this case, what Atrium is noting is that Herb here, he actually has a fairly substantially lower average selling price as compared to the other reps like him in the trailing 90 days. Again, this is comparing apples to apples. I think this is a mid-market inside sales team. So what all the other mid-market reps in this organization have an average ASP of 35K. And so what Atrium is noting to me is that Herb is light there. Herb has a 32% lower ASP than the rest of those reps. And so what's happening here is Atrium is noting to me these really important KPIs and especially essentially their moves and indicating to me like, wait a minute, this guy's got a lower win rate and he's got a lower ASP. Okay, man, something's really up there. And so what this does is this helps me as a manager understand exactly where I need to be focusing my time. I obviously really need to work with Herb here and figure out what the heck is going on because his win rate is dramatically off as compared to where it has been previously, even though his ASP is lower. Right, so this is like all hands on deck in order for me as a manager to get ahead of potential issues with Herb here. And again, I didn't have to do any dashboard diving or Sherlock Holmesing or anything like that here because Atrium did all this for me. Similarly, Atrium will note to me where outperformance is happening. So in this case, Lucifer the cat here has a variety of pretty positive positive notifications here. Their win rate is 89% higher than it has been historically. So this is kind of the inverse of the Herb situation. The their bookings is substantially higher as this quarter as compared to their peers. Again, very powerful. Their weighted pipeline based on their historical win rate. This is actually a very sophisticated Atrium card that looks at it weights the open pipeline for each rep based on the historical win rate from each stage that the ops are in. It's essentially doing runtime forecasting based on win rates from various stages. So Lucifer right here has a dramatically higher forward 90-day weighted pipe as compared to everybody else. So this person's really hitting the cover off the ball here. One, I probably should give him I should give him a high five, give him a hug. Just feel like we don't want you to go anywhere. Secondarily, what would be really powerful is if I can figure out what is the secret of this person's success, maybe I can generalize this to the rest of the team and help everybody. So raise all the boats up and make everybody more successful by identifying what is the thing that is helping Lucifer the cat be so successful here. And the last thing, the last kind of example here is that Lucifer the cat is also beating their goal. This is the third type of alert. Their goal alert on that has been set for $24,000 for the ASP. We'll get into goals a little bit more here, but those are the main kind of ways that Atrium knows that something's up and kind of directs my attention as a manager to, hey, Lucifer the cat's kicking butt for these reasons right here. Please go give him a high five and generalize this. By the way, Herb Muddlefoot has these issues. By the way, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit has different issues. Let's go ahead and spend our time fixing those issues as opposed to trying to find what those issues are. The next thing I want to note to folks is this notion of goals. So paying attention to goals on leading indicators and lagging indicators is really important because it helps us never miss something. We don't get behind the 8 ball. We don't get surprised by anything. And so what Atrium allows you to do is set a goal on any of those Legos that we were kind of talking about down here on any of those metrics cards. So in this case, this organization, this mid-market AE organization, has set a couple of different types of goals. On a weekly, you can set them on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. And because we're actually at the very, very beginning of the month right now, Atrium is actually reporting on the attainment of last month's goals. So on a weekly standpoint, this organization has said, hey, we have an expectation that that you're supposed to have 12 customer facing meetings per week. Pretty reasonable, right? And so here we are on Wednesday. Is it already Wednesday? My goodness. And what Atrium is doing is it's doing the math for us on how we're doing towards that goal. Again, nobody has to use their eyeballs to like try to bird dog and say, hey, are we pacing towards that goal, per this chart or what have you? No, the math is already done for us. And what we can see is that the team is actually 60% light on their pace towards hitting that goal. And so what Atrium is actually noting is that the Atrium is projecting forward to the end of this week and saying, hey, the team in general is probably going to get to around 5. But what's interesting about this is that this is different on a rep by rep basis. Some of the reps are much lower than the other reps, and some of them are higher. And the same is true with kind of like last month's goal attainment. So in this case, you can also set a goal on, you can set monthly goals as well. And so what this organization has done is they said, hey, we have an expectation that you should have $500,000 of new pipeline should be coming into your pipe on a monthly basis. And so what Atrium is doing here is it's reporting on last month and saying, hey, here's where we landed versus not. And in general, this team is like pretty light on new pipeline ownership there, about 50% light. But what's interesting is that, again, this is kind of something that has variation between the reps. This rep right here, Wendy Pleakley, she's light about 60% there. Whereas her Muddlefoot here was only light about 30% or so. Given the fact that there's kind of broad lightness across this organization, this actually might indicate to us that this goal actually might be incorrect. Seems like it might be more reasonable for the goal to might be a little bit lower, or alternatively, something is very broadly off across the entire team. And so the important thing here is that we can set these goals. And so not only are they present here in Atrium, but they come to us. Right? This is broadcast to me as a manager because I'm the person who's responsible for these goals, for these reps. This information comes to me via email, via Slack, and what have you. So on Thursday morning, I get a notification saying like, hey, here's where we're at with respect to our goals this week. And then every Monday afternoon, I get a report out on like, hey, here's how we're tracking towards our goals for this month, right? It's the second Monday of the month. Here's where we're at. Here's how we're pacing with respect to new pipeline ownership. Here's how we're pacing with respect to opportunity ownership. And it doesn't just do this on a team basis. It does this for each of my reps because, again, reps are different. They have different issues. And so as a manager, having this delivered to me so I can understand very quickly, oh, here's the issue with this rep right here. I need to get ahead of that. Wow, this rep is kicking ass for these reasons right here. I need to give them a high five and see if I can generalize that to the rest of the team. That's extremely powerful for me as a manager to be able to use that data to improve team performance versus trying to read the tea leaves of a bunch of, inscrutable walls of charts. So that's goals. And so then the last thing I want to note for folks here is Atrium will also do root cause analysis on and look for how metrics are moving in various ways to potentially indicate a root cause, a problematic root cause. And so in this case, we actually have Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Looks like he's not exactly super lucky right now. Atrium is noting to me a combination of KPIs moving in a way that indicates something that I might be as a manager, I might want to be aware of. So in this case, what we can see here is that Oswald, he actually has 59% fewer opportunities that have advanced the stage. So this is actually a very important KPI. You can have all the ops you want in your pipe. You can have as much pipeline as you want. But if those opportunities aren't advancing stages, look out, right? Because that kind of indicates to me that there's not really any sort of like forward momentum happening on those deals. And so that should be something that's very worrisome. And so this is, again, another KPI that Atrium has right out of the box. It's ready to go as soon as you turn on your Atrium account in a couple of minutes. And so in addition to saying, hey, here's something that's off, what Atrium is doing is it's indicating where that might be coming from. And in this case, it actually looks like his activity is a little bit off as compared to his peers. And so what we can see here, yes, Brer Bear is really pulling, looks like someone's been doing some prospecting at a kid, right? So, but in general, Oswald's activity is off as compared to his peers. And again, this is doing that peer alerting. So comparing the apples to apples on the team. So Oswald is light on emails. He's light on customer facing meetings. He's light on the number of opportunities and accounts that he's engaging. So in general, he is broadly light across the last 2 months as compared to his peers. So there's really like a pretty broad activity issue here across the board. And so that's something as a manager that I should really be aware of and get ahead of there. Like, hey, this rep has a broad activity problem. And what that's doing is it's driving a deficit of opportunity advancement on like across his pipeline. That's really concerning. Either this rep is potentially attriting, or closed some massive deal maybe like 2 months ago and it decided to take a vacation for 60 days without kind of telling anybody. Regardless, I really need to get ahead of this, because if this continues to be the case, he's going to have a major bookings problem because none of those opportunities are advancing. And so the way that I would have to do this historically as a manager, as a sales operations person, is I'd actually have to look at 6 different metrics to figure out, like in a wall of charts, in order to correlate that and figure out what's going on. In this case, Atrium has looked at all those KPIs for me for this individual rep and said, hey, here's this issue. You need to be aware of this. And that's extremely important, because as a manager, what I want to be able to do is spend my time changing rep behavior, coaching reps in the right direction, and getting ahead of issues before they become problems and show up as a really nasty booking surprise at the end of the quarter. So that's kind of the major walkthrough here. Again, thank you for joining the demo. I hope folks really enjoyed it. The thing I might recommend to folks, again, is that it only takes about a couple of minutes to set up an Atrium account. If you want to head over to atriumhq.com, you can just go ahead and hit sign up. And it takes, it's very quick to turn on a free Atrium account that'll show you, start your journey towards data-driven sales management and show you all of those various things that might be happening with respect to your team. So thanks very much for taking the time to hang out with us today. And, I'll see you next time, guys. Bye.